I'm Eric Barden.
I'm Amy Barden.
And this is another episode of Bombardened. Today, we are speaking with Judge Dave Larson from Federal Way Muni Court. And we're really excited about it. He's an innovator. He's a forward thinker. He really cares about people. And we're looking forward to a good convo.
I'm really excited about this one because we talk to so many people around the criminal justice system, but we haven't talked to a judge yet. I think that perspective is really unique. And again, there's so much power to influence individual lives. If you're a judge, there is. But we often see people misinterpret accountability. I talk about conflating it with punishment. I think there's a trend in a lot of major cities that compassion looks like no accountability. It's just a misdemeanor. We're not going to intervene. We're not going to intervene. And it's so frustrating because I feel like that is the opposite of what it should be. It should be that we intervene thoroughly at the first sign of trouble so that these cycles don't persist. So like in the housing space, there's something called rapid rehousing that it's a model I fell in love with, 15 years ago, because there's signs of trouble, right? There's signs that somebody might become evicted or become homeless. They're falling behind on rent or their kids are truant. And why not just intervene and see what's happening before the family is on the street? And that's how I see our courts, that we're not doing anything until there's catastrophic harm and destruction and self-destruction, and then we decide to intervene.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a great discussion because we're going to talk about the differences between arresting, convicting, putting somebody in jail, and the effectiveness of that intervention versus early in the process when folks are just having contact with the criminal justice system. Are there other interventions that put that person on the right path and save everybody a whole lot of time, a whole lot of effort, and a whole lot of victimization? So this is going to be a great conversation, and we're looking forward to it. And this will all once again soon be bombarded. Welcome, Dave. We're excited to have you here. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, no, we know each other because of Lauren Davis, right, who recommended that we connect. And what I found, especially with people like Lauren, is just to say, yes, please introduce me. Because generally, it's a pretty small group of people who are trying to actually advance meaningful change, I'm finding, in a logical and pragmatic way. And so we had a phone call recently where we were talking about therapeutic courts and what works. And I was so fascinated to hear from a judge, because I'm often talking to therapeutic court managers and then people in recovery. So I've got these different perspectives, but not the judicial perspective. And so I wonder if off the top, will you just tell us what is your background and how did you get mixed up in this space?
Okay.
Mixed up.
Actually, I'm a municipal court judge, which is entirely 100% criminal. There's some traffic.
Yeah.
Most of our filings are traffic, but most of our time is spent on criminal cases. And before I became a municipal court judge, I was actually of counsel at a large law firm I was national counsel on asbestos litigation, managing discovery on 15,000 asbestos lawsuits. I did construction litigation where you needed 25 chairs in a conference room to take a deposition. So I went from complex civil litigation to traffic and misdemeanors. And one time I spoke to some high school students, they said, well, you don't handle very important cases, do you? And I said, well, actually, I handle the most important cases because I can get somebody before they graduate to a felony. But basically, I was an immigrant into the criminal justice system because I was entirely civil for 23 years. And so I saw things that maybe some other folks didn't see and developed over time and really grew into the position. I've been there now over 17 years. And the reason Lauren Davis hopefully recommended me is because she and I have had some very good conversations. In fact, she prompted me to be the first court in the state to have peer navigators embedded in our court.
Oh, no kidding.
And so ultimately, there's all kinds of, we could talk forever on all the different things we could do, but certainly coming into the system without growing up in the system kind of gives me a different perspective that I've kind of tried to capitalize on.
What attracted you into the public space?
Well, I wanted to change the system originally. I ran for the Supreme Court in 2000, wanting to change the entire system. And ultimately, I gave up on trying to become a judge and was president of the Federal Way School Board. And the Federal Way Court was in trouble. It was in the newspaper every other day with some controversy. So they asked me to come over and fix the court. And 17 years later, I'm there. And it was more to help my community. I've lived in Federal Way since 1967 and been involved for quite some time. So I went over there to kind of as a way to help the community, and probably one of the more purpose-driven positions I've ever held in my life.
Yeah.
And it really was an eye-opener in terms of how much it had an impact on my personal life, too. I think it made me a better human being to take that position.
Yeah, no, I think I mentioned that Eric was in law enforcement for 38 years and over narcotics for a long time. I came out of the nonprofit sector into the public sector, my foray, right? The first 48 hours is 911. And I'm trying to understand what is going on. Basically, who do I send to what calls and why are the calls coming in to begin with?
Right.
And was very naive about the correlation of substance use, mental health crises, and crime. I think what most Americans think, which is like, yeah, there's some mental health folks, those are calls 988 perhaps. And then there's criminals and, people doing crimes because they have criminal intent and ambition. And by the end of my first year, I became very strident in this opinion that crime and crisis are really the same thing, right? That you have sometimes a different path into the criminal activity, and it can originate with mental health or trauma, and then sometimes not. I've talked to people also who are like, no, I was a rebellious kid, or I was a jerk, or I was, just basically unchecked in my choices. And Eric and I have both bemoaned the fact that we don't really intervene often until somebody is at a felony level, right? Until they're years into these cycles of crime and crisis. And then there's King County Drug Diversion Court. And so I'm really interested in your space that you are catching people upstream. So tell me about that.
Well, first of all, we got to change the attitude that it's just a misdemeanor, right? And that's when we need to intervene. The first time anybody's ever in a court, first time anybody interfaces with law enforcement in a criminal matter, or even for that matter, when they're exhibiting signs of mental health or addiction, to get them intervention then, because we can nip it in the bud a lot easier. And the fact that we wait so long is probably the reason why we have as many problems as we do.
Did you just become best friends? Yeah. I'm watching your expression.
Well, the strategy that I've been an advocate of is that first time somebody's ever there. And it's not just a warm hug, warm fuzzy kind of thing. It's a screening process, because the people that are truly affected, they will drop out of the system. If they're truly affected and you get them intervention, meaningful intervention, not just something you can check a box and pat yourself on the back.
Meaning they don't show
good.
Up in your courthouse again,
right?
Or
something that looks at the whole person, looks at that person. And I can explain in a minute what that looks like. But because what ends up happening the second time they come back, well, wait a minute, we're going to intervene a little bit more. Third time, wait, we're getting serious now. We're going to intervene a little more. Fourth, fifth time, maybe they're just a criminal that also has a behavioral health issue. And the behavioral health issue isn't fueling the crime, because we've always had crime, always will have crime. The problem is when we wait too long, we can't tell the difference. Yeah. And so the frustration that people see out in the community is these people just revolving through the system because, number one, they're already out of control and it's hard to catch up. Mm-hmm. Number two, some of these folks, no matter what you do, no matter what intervention you give them, they're still going to commit crime. And so it's very frustrating within the system and to the public to see that kind of cycling through. And if the absence of an overall strategy and the absence of a kind of a unified, this is kind of the way we need to deal with this, and a kind of treat it as a continuum, that's what's absent. And the leadership, that's why I ran for the Supreme Court last year, 4 years before that, and 4 years before that, is because I wanted to be that kind of bully pulpit to kind of get the system to recognize that we need to have an actual strategy that needs to be across disciplines. And I think I shared the sequential intercept model with you, that is kind of the gold standard, and actually have that be kind of the ethic for across the board.
One of the things I think that people, the average citizen may not get, is sort of the wash, rinse, repeat that we have through municipal courts with often the same people over and over and over again. Certainly police officers see the situation where you have chronic offenders, high utilizers, who something's not working, something's
Right.
not right. It could be crisis, it could be a behavioral health issue, it could be addiction, it could be any number of things, it could be anger and angst that young people have, particularly when they have something rough going on at home or some such thing. But I think fundamentally, we used to think back in the day, traditional thought was, well, the threat of going to jail, the threat of being arrested, the threat of going to jail is going to keep folks on the straight and narrow.
Right.
Well,
pain and pleasure.
I think we can say with some degree of certainty that hasn't panned out too good. That is a dismal failure, particularly with the exact folks that we're talking about right now, who are the folks in crisis and the folks suffering from addiction. So I 100% agree that what we need to do is we need to implement an intervention that is actually beneficial to change behavior, because that's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the system. If you can get that person on the right course, and the sooner the better, certainly. We also know that, without rehab, addiction gets worse over time. It doesn't get better over time. It's not like if you wait for 4 crimes later, they're going to be in a better place to find recovery. So I just wanted to, I love what you're saying, but I want to set the stage for folks that may not be aware that we're seeing, a very small percentage of community committing the vast majority of crimes.
And first of all, let me just tell you where the magic is, as far as I'm concerned, and where we're making mistakes. The mistake is we think we can have some outside force, outside incentive, outside something or other influence people. Where the secret is to get in their skin, look through their eyes back, and get them to be motivated to change. Because then when they are motivated to change, if we're not there to meet them, then we're part of the problem. And that's the key is that threat of jail, threat of this, threat of that is just bouncing off people.
Those are
It's got to be from the, and I use every trick in the book to try to get in that person's skin and get them to be talking back to me in ways that are constructive for their life. Rather than me telling them what to do, it's going to stick a lot better if they're the ones telling themselves to do it. And that's where the importance of peer navigators come, is because nobody's going to come to me that first time and say, Your Honor, I used fentanyl just before I came to court.
Yeah.
But they might tell a peer navigator who's got a confidentiality provision that can't report back to me. And when I spoke at the drug court conference a couple of years ago, I started out with this model that I had where judges shouldn't have to micromanage everything, is basically, are you willing to live the success you'll never know about? I'll never know whether those things happen. But the point is that until we realize that we're dealing with a crisis of the spirit of individuals, and a lot of times people are medicating, and if we don't dig deep and make them dig deep to why they're really behaving the way they are, all we're doing is checking a box. We went to inpatient treatment. We pat ourselves on the back, and they go and repeat it. They go and repeat again. But until that person, again, decides for themselves that they need a change.
Well, you sound a lot like Amy right now. There's a fundamental belief. I mean, for you to say the things that you're saying, there's a fundamental belief that people can and will change if given an opportunity to do so.
Right. And that's where, but the point is that if you always take it from an external, if you're going to go to jail, you're this or else, this or else, this or else.
Yeah.
You won't see change.
The extrinsic stuff.
You're going to capture some people. You're not going to capture everybody by using the inside out method. You're going to capture a lot more people than you are with the external, the threats. Because basically somebody that's worried about their next fix, they don't care what I just said.
Not at all.
They don't, they're interested in just moving on so they can move on. And I think I shared a video with you with a guy named Lalu.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to watch.
I did.
But he talked about being released from jail. The treatment center could be across the street and the drug house could be 5 miles away, and the drug house looks closer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. One thing we hear consistently, we're always talking to folks in recovery. Generally, everybody's been in the justice system that we're talking to, and we're both really intrigued by the moment that the change starts to take hold. What happened? And sometimes we hear like, I got tired. I knew I couldn't do this anymore. Something had to be different. But I think that's what's so hard for policymakers is that is such a squishy concept, right? The point at which we have a friend, Dave DeRozier in Salt Lake, where he was kind of schooling me on education, access to education in prisons. He said, Amy, that fundamentally doesn't change how you think about the world and about yourself. He's like, it's a great thing. But he said, make no mistake, like somebody being able to do math doesn't mean that they're being less egotistical, right? And less selfish and less deluded.
Accountable for their decisions.
Right. And so that was really helpful for me. So I'm really curious when you talk about trying to, again, get inside the mind of the person. How do you do that as a judge?
Well, you listen very carefully to what they say. You look at their history. You look at all kinds of any information you can have. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Just found out somebody had a new baby. Okay, and it's their first.
Yeah.
And it's a guy and it's a boy that they had. And I say, hey, how do you want your child to turn out? Believe it or not, you're their hero. Yeah. What kind of how do you want to model your behavior? Do you want them to go through what you've gone through, or do you want them to have a better life than you've had?
Yeah.
And try to get them to start thinking of, and again, what's the vision of where I want to go?
Yeah.
And how do I get there? And then this is where Representative Davis, Lauren Davis, and I are soulmates in the sense that she used the term when we were in a conference room in the Capitol building in Olympia, and the first time I ever heard the term warm handoff.
Yeah.
The idea of when that person's ready, boom, we're ready with them and we don't lose them. Because I'll give you an example of in my community court of a situation, and this is where peer navigators come in too. I had a guy in my community court and he was hurt. And you could tell he wanted to fix, and he was going to inpatient 3 days later. And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we'd have lost that guy. They were relapsed, they'd never shown up.
Yeah. I
brought the peer navigator in and they walked figuratively and literally with him and got him into inpatient. He successfully completed.
Yeah.
But if he would have walked out of that we meet at the library in Federal Way, if they had walked out of the library, we'd have never seen him again. We wouldn't have shown up for inpatient. So that idea that when somebody's ready, we are, that is so crucial. And because we are part of the problem. If we can't use the old kick you to the curb and hope you figure it out, if you don't figure it out, we're going to punish you model. An example in theft cases, and it's still in my court, that it happens where somebody commits a theft and they want to sentence somebody to consumer awareness class. and okay, well, I want to learn why theft is bad, but okay, what'll that do?
Is it called consumer awareness class?
Consumer awareness, yeah. And the idea is, for instance, if the profit margin is $1 and you steal a $10 item, they have to sell 10 of them or 9 of them to break even or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or because it cost them $9, That kind of stuff is what you learn. But when somebody's in the throes of addiction, they'll go and they'll check that box.
That is cracking me up. So it's like, now that I know QFC's profit margin woes, that's going to change my...
That doesn't do it.
So it's not so... And by the way, I don't want to... Everybody thinks of just the retail theft and the criminal trespass and those kind of things. The substance stuff is in domestic violence. We get what's called a domestic violence supplement.
Honey, you can't prove that.
He hears me argue this all the time.
Well, one of the things that I have said, and I want you to continue with your thought, I'm just interrupting for a moment to say that people think of drug crimes as drug possession
and distribution
and drug sales.
Yeah.
And drug crimes are theft,
all the crimes,
burglary, robbery, assault, DV. I mean, all crimes. Like addicts are the ones committing the vast majority of the crimes.
Yeah, and when in 2023, when they're doing the Blake bill, I went to Olympia, trying to get them to understand that they're focusing on drug possession and drug possession only because they were trying to criminalize it again, which is fine. And providing treatment for that. And I said, you don't understand. You're not going to arrest somebody that just stole something from the store. you're not going to arrest them for drug possession.
Yeah.
Because the reason they're stealing is because I'm not saying in every case.
Right.
But likely the reason that person that's in the throes of addiction is stealing is so they could go buy the drugs that they then possess.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that theft has to be just as important to you as that drug possession when you're providing for treatment and everything else. And in DV, we get what's called a DV supplement, and which I look at when we're trying to determine conditions of release and everything, because it's basically the broader story. How many times have there been threats to kill, or there's suicidality? We're looking for red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And invariably, there's either alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
And almost in every case, it's alcohol or drugs that I just sentenced a guy yesterday. What's today? Yesterday. That it was meth. That when he's not on meth, he's cool.
Yep.
And when he's on meth, he's very abusive. And 33 cases he's had in the system. Yeah. And so the point is that we can't look at it so narrowly. And when I was at the recent recovery conference, I talked about this being a cultural issue, that we medicate everything. And we wonder why even my son, my oldest son, who's law enforcement now, they wanted to put him on Ritalin, and he was devastated. He didn't want to be on that. So I told him, I said, if you improve in 2 weeks, you will you don't need to take it anymore. And by the way, he was in second grade. By fourth grade, he was reading at ninth grade level. Yeah. Because what I did for that 2 weeks is I gave him baby aspirin. And it was basically his.
So like placebo effect?
Exactly. So the point is that they wanted to medicate my son. And what would have happened to him if the answer to everything is medication? Is it any wonder that the answer to woes is to take some kind of illicit drug?
Wildly over-medicate.
Yeah. Do you know Joe Barsana? Have you run across him? He's a drug court manager with King County. And again, rinse and repeat. I mean, he's been arrested by everyone in King County, basically, and, went down several times. Actually, 2-time drug court graduate. He's happily recovery has taken. He's a great leader, but he, made us chuckle. It was sad, but he said, do you understand the irony that you're trying to get me off pills so you give me different pills, right? Yeah. And I think that's the criticism, the methadone for life idea is like, couldn't we believe that recovery is possible? And actually help people into it.
Right. And tell people really deal sometimes with those deeper issues. Yeah. They're going to continue to
medicate,
deal with issues in a way that isn't necessarily constructive. And it's, so there's also a bigger picture in terms of how we treat each other, how culturally it's so complicated, but basically it comes down to, again, the crisis of the human spirit. And like I said at the recovery conference too, and I said throughout my campaign last year, which is a lot of people want us to be tougher on crime. Yeah. A lot of us want to be softer on crime. And I think we need to be smarter on crime.
Oh, that's good.
Right? Yeah. And smarter means having some kind of agreed upon strategy. I'm an advocate I developed a concept called regional resource networks, where regardless of whether it's law enforcement, a jail, a court, that we refer people to the same resources. So regardless of whether they are on the continuum, they're not getting, I'll pick on my own city for a minute. And not that we've done this, but under the law right now, Federal Way Police could start a LEAD program. We could have our community court, and our jails that we use, because we don't have our own, could have jail reentry programs. And they don't have to work together. They could use different providers, different services, and yet that one person navigates through all of those systems. Yeah. Right. And
with no continuity.
No continuity. And this is the thing I was going to explain earlier, and I think we talked about it on the phone, is the jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. Okay. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Each of us in the system, whether it's courts, police, treatment agencies, represent a piece of the puzzle. And we all know exactly where we fit and know our piece of the puzzle. And if you just give us more money or give us this new program, we'll fix it. Right. But the people we're supposed to serve, all they see is a bunch of jigsaw puzzle pieces strewn about. And that's very system and program based. And I'm an advocate for a participant based system where the person becomes the jigsaw puzzle. We find what pieces are missing and fill those pieces. If they continue to commit crime, maybe you're just a criminal, because we've always had people that commit crime. And the behavioral health issue is not the reason you're committing crime. Maybe you're just not a good person.
One of the things that we talk about is and even in Seattle, is all of these siloed databases that because the person that you're talking about moves through these different systems and has touch points with all these different folks, and they each one of those interactions is a learning opportunity to dig deep into that person to find out what the problem really is. But all of those folks are operating independently of one another with no benefit of the knowledge from the other ones.
Right.
And, shameless plug, I'm representing Peregrine as one of the consultancies that I have. And the sole purpose of that program is to integrate data from siloed locations. And one of the things that we're talking about is, if you have one of these folks that's suffering from crisis or substance use addiction, and every time they interact with the system, all these different components, you got your community outreach folks, you got your public health folks, you got the jails, you got the courts, you got the police department, you got the fire department, you got the
emergency rooms,
you got 988, you got all these folks. It'd be akin to a cancer patient going into the doctor, and every time they went to the doctor, it was a new provider with no access to the files that they previously had. You cannot have a continuum of care if you do that, and yet we do that with our folks entering the justice system and wonder why it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm an advocate for, it sounds like we're soulmates too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I'm an advocate for what I call a dashboard.
Yeah.
Which basically, because right now, treatment providers can see where the person's gotten treatment.
Yeah.
We can see what the court dates are for
Right.
court dates.
Right.
Treatment providers can't see our court dates.
Right.
We can't see their stuff. And so why not make everybody an ally in trying to help these folks? And so, for instance, one of the things that happens to people is I always tell people, show up for court. Most of these crimes, you won't go to jail. If you show up, you won't get a warrant. If you get a warrant, you're going to be in jail. Right. And
that is so simple, but nobody says that.
Right. Yeah. Know? And so the treatment providers, if they can see that when somebody has a court date and they know there's criminal justice involved, hey, you got a court date coming up, and don't miss it, and et cetera, et cetera. And I did that forum that Lalu, the videos from, is from 2017, where I brought the St. Francis Hospital, Home Depot had their vice president of the Home Depot was at that thing, and basically brought all the disciplines together. And I developed a strategic plan after that. And I actually was on 2 panels down in Orlando, Florida for the Retail Industry Leaders Association on this idea of we're seeing the same people. Yeah. Why don't we work together? And I got so much pushback from the judiciary itself. But it's been worth the effort over the years because I think we're making progress. But the whole idea is that, for instance, why does the fire department in South King Fire need 2 social workers? Why don't they have the ability to work with other agencies that can have social workers? Right? Yeah. And it's like we're all on a freeway, right? And we have our lanes and we're heading the same destination. Right. But there's so much of this straddling lanes and going into other people's lanes. Wow. In courts, we judges, we got a lot of great judges, by the way, and a lot of great judges some that are better than me even, that really care about people wanting to get them. My motto is I run a repair shop, not a junkyard. Right. Yeah. But the point is that we end up in a lot of ways trying to micromanage treatment and everything else, when in reality, our lane is, are you committing a crime? Yeah. If you're not committing a crime, you're good. If you have a positive UA and you're in treatment, you should be treated like anybody else that has a positive UA that isn't committing a crime. Yeah. Now, the idea that there's accountability if you continue and you're willful about it, yeah, there should be. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is we destroy some people's lives. Sometimes when we get too zealous about putting people in jail when they have a positive UA, we set them back. Yeah. And so always mindful of the impacts, what you're doing with them, what you're doing with defendants, what impact that's going to have on people. But anyway.
One of the things that we've really heard as a theme across talking to a vast number of folks from this space, with wildly different experiences, but all talking about the same sort of situation that we're talking about, is that there has to be this unique collaboration between support and accountability. And to your point, yes, there are consequences if you willfully are disregarding the expectation that you not use whatever substance. But at the same time, to eject someone from the rehab program because they made a mistake is not the right answer, because all of our goals, and I think, again, you're talking about let's work collaboratively together to fix this person or allow this person a pathway to fix themselves. We all benefit if we can kind of help each other in that regard.
And fiscally, it makes more sense too.
Hello.
Yeah. So what I do with people too, you asked about one of my tricks. It's not really, I call them tricks, but they're not really tricks. They're just basically good strategies, I hope, is I'll ask people, who do you want to control your life, you or me?
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of, then you see them go, well, me.
Yeah.
And they're in front of me because they've had positive UAs or they've committed a new crime or whatever. And I said, well, right now I can control your life.
Yeah.
Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Is that what you want that? And then what I'll do in some cases where we're at a point where the prosecutor's asking for a lot of jail time is I'll give them, they make 60 days or something, because it's just been we're done. We worked with you, you keep doing the same stuff. And so what I'll do is I'll go, okay, I'll give you 60 days, but I'm going to stay it. I'm going to not make you go to jail right now, and we'll continue it 60 days down the road, 90 days down the road, ever. And if you're in compliance, your lawyer can either ask to have it reduced, or you can maybe ask for a jail alternative like electronic monitoring or something. But right now, you're in charge of whether you're going to jail or not. You're the one deciding whether you're going to jail. I'm giving you an opportunity to stay out of jail. It's up to you. So you're in complete control right now. And most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. But it's basically what it. And I said I'm being transparent with you. What you're doing now is you're building skills for other parts of your life. The fact that you're being responsible, you're showing up, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, et cetera, that works in your employment, that works in your family, that works every part of your life. And so, and then I tell people, we're not just giving you these conditions because we want to put you in jail if you don't do them. They're designed to make your life better. Right. And I assume you want a better life than what you've had. Yeah. And so a lot of it's almost like, in fact, sometimes I'll even say I said, do you ever play sports? Said, yeah. Well, what was your favorite coach? Well, so-and-so. I said, were they easy on you or tough on you?
Yeah.
And were you better because they were tough on you? Yeah. Well, I'm a coach. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get you to understand that you're in control of your life and you need to change your life. Yeah.
Do you find generally that people show up and they're scared of you, or they feel like, this guy's on the other side, right? You're the enemy. I mean, what do you do?
I start with kindness, but I tell people don't confuse my kindness for weakness. And I say Lady Justice has a sword and there's a dull edge and a sharp edge. I know how to use both. Yeah.
So you're trying to level set, like you are an authority.
Right. But at the same time, I care about you. And if I'm writing you right now, it's not because I'm trying to embarrass you or do anything, because I care. Because I know you can do better. And then use positive reinforcement as much as possible too. Especially in a probation review calendar where you got a courtroom full of people and you got this person getting their case dismissed because they did everything they should on what's called a stipulated order of continuance. So they're ultimately getting their case dismissed. You make a big deal out of that.
Yeah.
And, you congratulate. How are you feeling? I feel great and everything and blah, blah. You just, everybody else in that room hears also that kind of positive stuff. And basically they're going, I want that.
Yeah. Right.
So how am I going to get there? Well, again, it goes back to who do you want to control your life, you or me?
Yeah.
And I get people coming in, well, Your Honor, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my housing. I'm going to lose all this stuff. I said, you should have thought of that before. I said, accountability, I tell you a secret. If you're accountable before you do things, you don't have to worry about it after. Yeah. And that's when those folks I give opportunity. Sometimes I give them an opportunity. If you want to keep your job, nobody there to take care of your sick mother and everything else. Those are the things you should be thinking about having a responsible life. Because if you want to keep those things, if those things are truly important to you, you're not just bringing them to me, and I don't say it this way, but you're not bringing them to me as an excuse to stay out of jail. if you truly care about that,
And you're making decisions.
then make it about that, and you'll be in control of your life, and I will have no authority to do anything to you if you're in compliance. None.
So I want to ask you about two
Sure.
things that I think I shared with you. You know, again, I've got like a kind of a professional lane, and I'm really in first response, right? So that's and maybe late stage diversion is my area. And I'm always stressing that is a piece of the puzzle, to your point, right? And no matter how many first responders we have, can have 2,000 more cops, 2,000 care responders, all the fire and EMS. It doesn't make a difference if we're not referring to a system that's going to change the behavior. And none of us are. We're designed to triage and to hand off. And so naturally, you know, by year 2, I'm talking all the time about jail bookings and, again, the justice system generally. That, you can pause the behavior, but ultimately what we want is to break the cycle. Right. And so I talk about jails and prisons. I have heard a lot of frustration about judges, about prosecutors, about public defenders. I don't know how much of it is valid or not, but I do know that it seems that folks in criminal justice sometimes are erring on the side of, I have compassion, so again, it's just a misdemeanor, right? I'm not going to intervene. I'm going to give you another chance because I'm compassionate. And there are cases where I'm like, oh my God, how is this person, you know, again, it was predictable that they were going to commit this heinous crime.
Right.
And I absolutely reject the whole premise of sentencing guidelines. I really do. I think days spent in a place doesn't mean anything.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can leave in 20 years 100 times worse than you entered.
Right. You
can also be wholly rehabilitated in 24 months. Right. And so it just frustrates me. So can you validate my frustration or comment?
Well, I think it's, I can tell you that the frustration that I have is sometimes, as you know, like people ask me how you're doing. How am I doing? I said, well, it depends on who you talk to, because everybody's got an opinion on how I'm doing. Because, you know, when you're sitting as a judge, and I also say, actually, I only weigh 150 pounds. This is just thick skin, right? But sometimes you take chances with people and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You know, so there's good faith trying to work with somebody and they blow it.
Yeah.
And they blow it. You didn't blow it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not cautious, if you're not doing kind of using some common sense and everything, then you're part of the problem. But sometimes there's good faith efforts to try to help somebody that then blows it. Yeah. Okay. On the other hand, the thing that's frustrating for where I validate what you're saying is folks that confuse kind of rest in place as compassion. You know, that there's the accountability piece is not something that should be part of it. Those are the folks that create that kind of thing, because and I always say rest in place and rest in peace have the same initials. Yeah. You know, because it's counterproductive. Yeah. If somebody's enabling behavior by not making them be accountable to stop it, then that works against us. Yeah. And so there's sometimes when what we do in the system, and I say we collectively, enables things. Yeah. Because if there aren't any consequences, well, that was easy. Yeah. You know, especially now that we're not supposed to fine people and everything else, we have defendants that leave with no fines or anything, or at least the recommendation is to leave with no fines. And what I'll do it's usually suspended license third. And what I'll do is still impose, not every case, because there's some cases where it's like, okay, you got all these other charges and you're kind of, that charge was 3 years ago, you're on a warrant, you changed your life. Okay, I'll do it. But a lot of times it's $300 fine, but I'll make them do 15 hours or 20 hours of community service to pay it off. Yeah. So there's some consequence, but sometimes I worry in the system that if we are consequence free, that because when we think that's compassionate, that we're really not being compassionate. Compassion means getting that person to actually live their life in a way that they're not coming back. Yeah.
Accountability is compassion. If you don't care about somebody, then you don't need to hold them accountable. But if you do care about them, you want them to make decisions that are best for them.
Right. And these people are potential neighbors. Yeah. You know, they can be productive citizens.
They're all going to be out and about, walking around.
And you talk about stories of these people that have been there, done that, been through everything. The peer navigators we work with are that way.
Unbelievable.
And they turn their lives into redeemed human beings that are huge parts of a successful society.
Yeah, contributing.
And you can do that.
greatly.
And
Yeah,
that's
we've seen that. We've seen that.
and the thing
again.
is that you don't just throw people, and that's why the run a repair shop, not a junkyard.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Yeah, because I used to drag race. I drove a dragster in NHRA competition, so cars are important to me. So that's where I came up with that. We used to be no repeat customers.
Yeah.
I don't want you coming back.
Yeah.
And then it became I run a repair shop, not a junkyard, because we can treat people like they're junk.
Yeah.
And when they come in and treat them with disrespect, treat them everything else, and we're going to reap what we sow. But if we treat people with respect and dignity and treat them like they have a potential, that you made a mistake, but you can overcome this. People have been through worse.
So you've come to this approach. You utilize this sort of compassion with accountability approach. What are the standards? What are the mechanisms by which judges are influenced one way or the other to operate? I mean, is this self-driven only, or is this part of a greater movement in federal way or across the region? Or what do you think?
Therapeutic courts have been around for quite some time. Restorative justice type things. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's not new. It's just become more prevalent. People are what I'm an advocate for. In fact, I'm butting heads right now with the Administrative Office of the Courts on this. Is that I want my whole court's therapeutic. I don't have the one problem in the judiciary we have, but not is that in some ways we treat therapeutic courts as the one-trick pony. We think that is our centerpiece.
Yeah.
Right. That should be what we use for when all else fails, right? Because those early interventions should be just like in my court, if somebody comes in to pay a traffic ticket, or if they're a family member of a defendant, they can talk to a peer navigator. They can because if you intervene early and you do prevention, then the people that should be in a therapeutic court are the people that not all else has failed, because there's steps after that too. But up to that point, the interventions that we've used haven't failed. Now we're going to spend serious business where we're one-on-one and it's intensive, and you're coming every week or 2 weeks to come and see a judge, and you're telling us how you're progressing and expected to kind of toe the line. And every success I have is owed to people that were hard on me in my life that I hated at the time. I mean, not hated, but really kind of like, Jimmy, Christmas, lighten
resented,
up.
Yeah.
But every one of those people, my football coach who just died 3 years ago, I travel, and I travel every year to Meade High School to present an award in his honor to students, to a male and female athlete. But I swear that guy was in my face mask sometimes, hard on me as hell. I mean, but he was my friend till the day he died. But that's, the thing is, I'm not mean to people, but I certainly, the guy yesterday, it was a domestic violence case, and, loving wife and everything else there here. And just, basically having a conversation. He was suicidal at one point and everything, and basically having a conversation with him with what do you want your life to look like? And you can get there, and basically coaching him, telling him, giving him ways, giving him hope, giving him a vision for how his life can be different.
I think we've developed this cult of low expectations. That's what I see everywhere. I really relate to what you're saying about the coach, because what you want for kids especially is, I believe in you. You can do hard things. You are good enough. You are, there was one friend where I said, are we communicating to people that the best we can hope for is that they survive, right? That we reverse the overdose and keep them alive, keep them breathing. That message is so damaging to people, especially on repeat. We can't expect better from you. And then conversely, when the message is, it does not have to be like this. You are better than this. People change. And I love your emphasis on peers, because that's what I keep hearing from people. And it's logical to me that if I have evidence, that, okay, Ginny was here, here's her 17 mugshots, and now look what she's doing. I think people absolutely need evidence that they can change because these people changed.
So I give an example of a case. We're talking about the human spirit and the idea that people believe in themselves. Years ago, when I first started the community court, we had a defendant who was a former Jefferson County, Missouri sheriff's deputy who was a meth addict up here committing crimes. And he came into court. He was all filthy and his clothes were torn and filthy and everything. One of our volunteers got her husband, who was the same size, to bring clothes to the court. So we had fresh clothes. And the guy, when he came into court, the whole time he wouldn't make eye contact. He was always looking down. He was just ashamed. And he just wouldn't, just horrible because he's just beaten down. And got his clothes. The next time he came to court, he was, kind of more likely to look you in the eye because he had clean clothes and, everything else. And the third or fourth time, he's like, eye contact and conversation and everything else. Now, he ultimately failed because he went back to his old crowd.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. The peer navigators, what that does is provide that barrier, an outlet for social interaction.
New
versus
community.
Because I can tell you, and you probably saw this as a police officer, that going back to the same group is going to almost guarantee you're back in the same path.
100%.
And if we can get you on a different path with different folks, with different motivations and different motivations for you in particular as a defendant, you're going to be more likely to be successful. None of this is a panacea. None of it's a guarantee. But I can tell you now, the old school kick you to the curb, hope you figure it out, and if you don't figure it out, we're going to punish you, won't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard Eric talk about, 38 years ago, believing, more arrests equals more public safety. We're going to arrest our way out of this. And it's really powerful when I say things like that. It's one thing coming from me, but when he says, we're not going to arrest our way out of this, right? If that worked, it would have worked. And it's more complex than that. One of the things I heard earlier today,
I should finish that though. I mean, I do believe that, and I do think that, and I do believe that the interventions that we make should be meaningful and effective. But also, 38 years ago, when we arrested people, they stayed in jail longer. They were sentenced to significantly longer sentences, and I can't tell you whether or not it was a successful intervention, but I can tell you that it had a significant impact on crime because that person who would otherwise be committing crimes when they were out and about. Now that ship has sailed, and that is not our current situation. We have collectively decided, and frankly, there's not capacity, even if we had changed our minds, to go back to that, to longer sentences and people spending more time in jail. But it's not true that arresting people and putting people in jail didn't have a positive impact on public safety. What's true is that in our current situation, where we're simply not going to do that, that we need to have interventions that are meaningful and functional to change people's lives. And I do think it's extraordinarily admirable that you look at what is the motivation, what is the meaning behind that. I too have football references. I coached youth football and high school football for over 10 years, and all of those kids would tell you that I was not roses and honeybees, but they would also tell you that I loved them. Right. And they knew that. They knew that I loved them. I cared about them. The fact that I had high expectations for them was respect for them because I thought they were so talented and capable. And, they still call me coach, even though they're all adults, And so it's every person that we've talked to that sat in that chair, many of whom have reclaimed their lives after, lives of crime and addiction and crisis. They all say that purpose is the critical factor for them. Dignity, self-worth feeling like they're worth it is part of it. So it sounds like what you're doing is speaking to those.
Well, I've never been a drug addict. I've never drank. I've never had those issues. Taco Bell is my problem. But the point is that I went through a period of time where I felt, I had all the money in the world, had my own law firm, et cetera, still wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. You talk about that P word, that's the purpose. It's the ultimate antidepressant. Mm-hmm. The sense of purpose, the sense of what's my life about? What's the meaning for this? And that's the ultimate, that's right there is also what I work with people on, is trying to figure out what their purpose. And sometimes the purpose is just your kids. Yep. Making sure you're the best parent. Yep. That's your purpose. And that's your purpose in life. Because that's the way I approach my kids. And one's a physician and one's a cop. I had high expectations for them.
Yeah.
And
one of them turned out all right.
Yeah, there you go. And
I meant the cop.
Yeah, that's it. But and a good mom too. But the point is that culturally we are a damaged society, and whether it's the family, whatever else. And I don't say that as a high and mighty person, nowhere near it. It's just, I think the human spirit, where we are as individuals and how we fit into the collective that way. Yeah. I think we really, we've just been kind of attacked the way culturally, I think, in a lot of ways. And some of it leads to kind of behavior we're seeing.
It totally does. I mean, we've been in forums. I sometimes get asked, why? Like, why these rates of overdose and addiction and mental health crisis and homelessness? And it's so hard to answer those questions because I see it the way that you do. You can see this. I mean, you probably read the Surgeon General report, the epidemic of loneliness. We are catastrophically disconnected from one another. The village is dissolved. I really reject vitriol. I just, that's the whole nature of the podcast, is we should be able to sit down and talk about these things and understand that generally we do agree on most things, and we should all agree that every life does have value. So I really appreciate what you're doing, because there should be, in your position, of all positions, so much humanity and some real wisdom.
It's opportunity is what I see.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And especially being upstream. I realized I was talking about, these felony courts so much and the models that I liked. And one day I thought, God, this is the opposite of how it is. It's like, finally, after you've caused so much harm and been so self-destructive and destructive, now we're going to get you help, right? Now we're going to address the trauma and get your mental health needs, your physical needs. We're going to upskill you. And I told you I really like Judge McHale, who presides right now over King County Drug Court, but he made a real impact on me the first time we spoke. He said, Amy, in my judicial career, this is the first time I've been able to actually be useful, and get people what I think they need. And he acknowledges what you said, that most of these crimes, most of these cases are correlating, with drug issues, with addiction, but he couldn't do anything about it. So I'm curious if you could, you talked about wanting to change the system. If there is one thing that could change, in the next 5 years, like state level or federal level, as it relates to judges,
or municipal level.
Well, the court system, and we talked a little bit about this before the show, is, first of all, we have to understand about human beings is that dignity and respect are as essential to us as eating, breathing, and sleeping. Yeah. And if you don't understand that, if you don't accept that, if you don't embrace it, the rest of it, what I'm about to say, won't make any sense. Because the system is supposed to be designed to deliver dignity and respect. I'll give you an example. I was an insurance lawyer, and I represented, insurance companies hired me to represent people who got sued. And I was representing this guy who killed a 12-year-old kid in an accident out in Graham. And the kid was on a bike on the shoulder going the same direction as my client. My client saw him, went to the center line, slowed down, kid darted. No liability. $100,000 policy limit. The insurance company's offering $40,000 because there's no liability. The parents wanted the limits plus my client's assets. So we went to mediation, and the mother expressed concern, and my client was there because his assets were at stake. Expressed concern because my client didn't really acknowledge or respect her son's death. And And I didn't think to ask this because I'm a lawyer. I'm going to win the case. I got all the traditional process procedure stuff all down. My client pipes in and says, well, I wanted to talk to you, but the school chaplain advised against it. I went to the funeral and stood in the back.
Oh.
And I planted 2 trees at the school in honor of your son. And there wasn't I can't even talk about the story today. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, and the parents settled for $40,000. All they wanted was dignity and respect. All they wanted was somebody to acknowledge that their son's life had value.
Right.
Right?
Yep. That's powerful.
And that story then 2 months later, I'm handling this case where my client got in an accident with somebody, and the plaintiff lacerated her liver, liver's over here, lacerated her liver and almost died. And we're at mediation. Insurance company's offering 70 on 100,000 limit, and the plaintiff lawyer wants more than limits. My client shows up at the mediation and tells the plaintiff, I pray for you every day. I check with you at the hospital. The plaintiff, against her lawyer's advice, took the 70 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, treating each other with dignity and respect. People talk about access to justice, and I point out, wait a minute, you mean access to lawyers and courts, or you mean access to justice? Because access to justice means justice delivered by, because justice comes from how we treat each other. Yeah. And as far as the system, I think the system, once the system, and I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. Once the system understands that its role is to restore human dignity, is to protect human dignity, to solve problems, to keep society moving forward, and not be in love with our rules, not be in love with our dogma, not be in love with the process, but really legitimately solve people's problems. That's the change. And you know what? It's free. An adjustment in attitude doesn't cost a dime. And that is why I've been on my quest now because that was like 1996. So it's almost 30 years of trying to change the system to get it to be. And when I ran for the Supreme Court in 2000, my motto was make the justice system work for you.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. Because once that changes, then in a lot of ways, the justice system is part of the problem in society because it's all about my pound of flesh and my rights and nothing wrong with asserting rights. I'm very much in favor of rights. But I also teach a thing that I developed called How Freedom Works, and it's based on 2 rules. Love the freedom of others as much or more as you love your own, and it's more important to do right than it is to be right.
No.
And the reason I developed those rules is because right now my rights are more important than yours, and I'm going to be right even if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm entitled to my opinion, and you're entitled to my opinion too.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna use that.
Yeah. You are very quotable.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's. I think I'd like to see the public expect more of the courts. I'm very much an advocate for what's called procedural justice. Yeah. There's 4 pillars of it that really because that will deliver that kind of dignity. So that's kind of a long answer to your short question, but it's really not complete either because I saw the reason I wanted to change things too is I saw us getting more and more away from the merits and less and less on the merits and more on the process. Yeah. I'll tell you another story. Back in the day, they developed all these rules, case scheduling rules, and you had to exchange witness lists. And my witness list hadn't been put in and it was due that day, so I faxed it to the lawyer. And this is during a time when plain paper faxes just came out. So you would have the same kind of paper as if I would have drove up to Everett and handed it to him in person. And he filed an objection the next day because I didn't serve him. So I looked at the rule and it said, well, we only have to exchange them. It doesn't say serve. And I said, I became a lawyer to argue about the definition of freaking exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's another thing that just because we became more and more rules and process based and less and
technicalities.
Less and less about the merits.
Yeah.
And I got story after story I could tell you on how that worked, how that's worked over my career when I became, as I developed, and how I was able to solve problems using those techniques. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to know you. You are very quotable. And actually, I love your answer about the change because I think we share a lot of beliefs. I feel like we need moral, ethical leaders who will center people and not prioritize the process. That's what we need. Because I do see individual actors like you getting it done. It wasn't, to Eric's earlier question, it wasn't that you were mandated and there was all this money poured into your courtroom, to shift your approach and your philosophy and your behavior. This is just you being a really smart, good person, advancing what you see as just and right and helpful.
Oh, and almost everything I've done, peer navigators obviously cost money, but like I said, just changing your attitude and approach. Doesn't cost anything, guys. And there you go. So
we've got some ideas that we're working on, and hopefully to change the system to do exactly what you're talking about. We look forward to talking with you more about that in the future, and we'll have you back on to discuss that. But thank you so much for coming. Is there anything that, before we wrap it up, that any last nugget that you want to leave us with that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
There's probably plenty, but I think really what it comes down to is as each of us navigate our lives, right? The reason how freedom works is so important because it's an answer to some of these other questions too. Because if I love the freedom as much or more as I love my own, imagine that where all of a sudden each of us develop that kind of ethic, we're going to harm each other less. We're not going to steal from each other. We're not going to drive carelessly and get in accidents as much because we're going to care about the impact we're going to have on other people. And we see ourselves as not just about me, it's about we. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you're socialism or collectivism. Yeah. It just means you have a responsibility in living in a free society, be a moral, self-governing person and not cause harm to other people. Yeah. Right? So that's what that first rule is. The second rule, more important to do right than it is to be right, is because what that does is it opens up your mind. Because one of the other sayings I have is disagreement's an opportunity, not a threat. Yeah. And we live in a world where you see disagreement as a threat when it's really an opportunity to grow and make yourself better.
Learn something.
And so that what that does is when I'm more interested in doing right than being right, then I'm going to be more apt to listen to you and maybe even change my own view because you got a better idea than I do. The example I use in the program is you have 6 ideas, I have 6 ideas. 3 bad ideas, 3 bad ideas, 3 good ideas each. Mm-hmm. If I'm in charge and I'm going to exclude you from the conversation, I proceed forward with 3 bad ideas and 3 good ideas. Mm-hmm. When we compare notes, we get rid of 6 bad ideas and go forward with 6 good ideas.
Yeah.
And then politically, again, judges don't get involved in the partisan stuff. But you can see that how it permeates into politics too, that basically it's about power and control. Yeah. It's about making sure that my side wins. Yep. And that that's the example that's set by our leaders that then navigates into our own lives. And that first rule kind of gets disregarded and the second rule gets disregarded because it's all about power and control. And the other thing that for elected officials, people in elected office, it's about a responsibility, not power. And I'll tell you one more story about how I point that out is I'm very involved in civics education, and I was with a bunch of high school students with about 4 or 5 other elected officials, council members, mayor, those kind of folks. And one of the students asked, when did you feel closest to your position? And I was last, and each of the people went down and talked about some law they passed or program they created or something in their official capacity. And when it got to me, I said, I was the back of the line at a chili cook-off. And this person came up to me and said, hey, Judge, how you doing? Talked to me for a couple of minutes and left. Person behind me said, hey, you're a judge. Just cut up in front of the line. And I said, actually, when I don't have my robe on, I'm like anybody else. And I said, the reason I told you that story is my position is that of citizen first. Yeah. I play a role as a judge. I have a responsibility. I don't have power. I'm a servant, not a master. And that's what I hope. I can only be me. And I just hope other elected officials understand that that's what should be what we should expect of ourselves, and that the public looks for people that feel the same way I do. Because if we did that, we would have a lot more functional governance, whether it's dealing with the issues we've talked about or dealing with anything else. Yeah. Because we really be trying to serve the people instead of serve ourselves or serve our constituency. Yeah.
This is an outlandish idea. That public servants serve the people.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. Love it. Thank you very much for coming. This has been a fantastic talk, and I think there's more talk to have in the future.
I think we should go throw a football around now.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the more insightful Bombardens that we've had.
Yeah,
so,
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. And I as you can tell, I like talking about this stuff, but I like doing it more.
Yeah.
But it's and a lot of judges feel the same way I do, and it's I'm retiring at the end of the year, but I probably won't give up. I'll have more freedom.
People like you never really retired.
No, because I think people deserve better than what we've got, and not to criticize people or to put people down for what they're doing, because I think everybody's working hard. Like I said, we just, instead of working harder, we need to work smarter and work together. And by the way, that Lalu, the video I shared with you, I hope you share it on your whatever.
Yeah, we'll post it with this. Yeah.
He's one of the big reasons, because on that, I did that video for legislators and for other people to really ask, what would his life have been like if somebody intervened when he was 18 years old instead of waiting 13 years?
Yeah.
Right?
What if?
And we don't want to spoil the end for anybody that's watching it.
Yeah, you need to watch this.
But but it's just the scars that people have, that everybody chooses to deal with their scars in different ways, and all of us have them. And just having a system that, again, is receptive enough to people to say, I got a problem, and then smart enough to have that handoff to deal with it right then and there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Outstanding. Thanks again, Dave, for coming. We really appreciate it. And now you two have been Bombardened.
The Bombardened podcast is a Barden Squared production. Executive producers are Eric Barden and Amy Barden, and video and audio production of the Bombardened podcast is by Thread Theory Creative.